Is it Cozumel or Cozumel? Regardless of how you choose to pronounce it, this is the topic of today's episode. Hi, I'm Melissa, a university professor who loves to cruise and who loves to talk ship. And in this episode, we're going to dedicate it to one of my favorite cruise ports where I actually just got back from, which is Cozumel. That's how I choose to pronounce it. This is one of the most popular and busiest cruise ports in the world. And whether you've been there before or you're planning to go or you just want to know more about it, I will tell you it's pretty freaking awesome. Cozumel offers a ton of different experiences. They're known for their beach clubs, which we'll talk about in this episode, but there's a lot more to do there than just chill at the beach. So let's take a look at what makes this such a must-see cruise port destination. First, let me tell you a little bit about where it's located. Cozumel is located off of Mexico's Mayan Riviera coast. And it is an island. So if you've been to Cancun before, Cozumel is like offshore of that. So there's actually a ferry that runs back and forth. So it's an island outside of Cancun. So think of it that way. And because they get so many tourists, especially US tourists on cruises, it's really tourist friendly and it's very American friendly. You'll find when visiting here that most of the vendors, especially near the port area, they are fluent or at a minimum conversational in English, and US currency is accepted pretty much everywhere. Now, there are a few things to keep in mind when you are visiting Cozumel. As I mentioned, Cozumel is a huge cruise port, and they have 3 terminals. There's Puerto Maya, the International Cruise Terminal, and Punta Langosta. Now, the good news is all 3 of these terminals, they're all great, and they're not located too far in distance from one another. But depending on what your plans are, your transportation and the time to different locations is probably going to vary depending on which of the 3 that you're docked. So it's not a huge deal to know in advance where your terminal is, but if you are curious about it, usually it will tell you that information on your cruise documents. And I'll give you one example of where this might matter. For instance, if you dock at Punta Langosta, downtown San Miguel is within walking distance. So you just get off the ship, you exit the cruise terminal area, and you can walk to downtown. But if you want that downtown experience and you're docked at one of the other 2 terminals, you can't really get there easily on foot. You'll probably want to take a taxi. Now let's talk about the pronunciation of Cozumel, because I have to address this. I do a lot of content on this cruise port, and every single time I do, there's always some troll that has something to say about the pronunciation. Now, most Americans call it Cozumel. And for my first several visits there, I, like most American tourists and cruisers, I called it Cozumel. But then the trolls had to weigh in and correct me and tell me, no, it's Cozumel or Cozumel. So I will tell you that most of the locals call it Cozumel, but Americans call it Cozumel. And when you're on a cruise ship, the cruise director, when they're announcing the day and you're getting off at port, they're probably also going to call it Cozumel. But don't worry about it. Aside from the internet trolls, which most of you thankfully don't have to deal with, you can pronounce it either way. Cozumel, 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 regardless, you're going to be understood. No one's going to not know what you're talking about. Now, the largest town on the island is San Miguel de Cozumel, which I earlier referred to as San Miguel. And this does get a little confusing because the island itself is Cozumel, but then the downtown is San Miguel Cozumel. And the downtown area is San Miguel de Cozumel. So the locals generally refer to this as El Centro or just San Miguel because tourists get confused between the difference of the island of Cozumel versus San Miguel de Cozumel. So if you hear someone refer to downtown or El Centro, then they're referring to the downtown area. Next, let's talk about language and currency. As I mentioned, this is a really tourist-friendly cruise port destination with over 4 million cruisers alone visiting each year. So while Spanish is the official language, as I mentioned before, most of the vendors are going to at least be conversational in English. So if you're visiting here, you don't have to worry about, downloading a language app and trying to learn it, or even having a translation app. Those are always good to have and smart when you're traveling out of the country to an area that speaks a different language, but it's not completely necessary. The official currency is the Mexican peso, but as I noted before, US dollars are widely accepted. Now, while you don't necessarily need to bring pesos, and I never convert currency, I go to Cozumel many times a year. It's probably next to Nassau, my most frequently visited cruise port destination. I've literally never once needed pesos. Don't depend necessarily just on credit cards though. Make sure you have some cash. because not every vendor, not every taxi driver will accept credit cards. And in general, taxis expect cash. So make sure you do have some cash, although no need to convert to pesos, but make sure you have some US currency on hand. Now let's talk a little bit more about those cruise terminals. As I noted before, Cozumel has those 3 cruise terminals. So let's talk a little bit more about each of them, because knowing a little bit about which one you're going to arrive at can help you just plan your day a little bit better. Puerto Maya is a terminal that is for the exclusive use of Carnival Corporation cruise ships. So if you're sailing on a Carnival Corporation cruise ship, which is Carnival, Holland America Line, and Princess, chances are pretty high you'll be docked at Puerto Maya. I like this cruise port because it has a lot of lush landscaping, there's a prominent water feature, and there are a lot of shops and stalls, in particular 65 of them. Of the 3 terminals, it is the busiest one, and while it does offer a pretty awesome shopping experience, it can get pretty crowded, especially when there are multiple cruise ships docked there at the same time. And if you dock here, if you do want to visit downtown or El Centro, it is not walking distance, so you'll need to take a taxi, and it's about 5 miles away. Now, if you want to stay in the port area, which I don't recommend, there's a ton of great things in Cozumel outside of the port, you can do that. There are the standard, again, lots of shops and stalls, restaurants, bars, and they have a Hard Rock Cafe right there outside of the cruise terminal area. Next is International Cruise Terminal. This is the oldest of Cozumel's 3 piers, but they still have a lot to offer. Your restaurants, your shops, they have a Margaritaville. It's not far from Puerto Maya, but it also does require a taxi ride if you want to go to downtown San Miguel. It's about 3 miles. So it's an easy, cheap taxi ride. Now, what's interesting about this port, they actually have a really small cenote. And if you're not familiar with cenotes, it's kind of a big thing in this region of Mexico, and those are natural sinkholes. So I thought it was really interesting there that there's a little area that's cordoned off, and it's like, oh, there's a little cenote there. Now, obviously, it's not the kind of cenote where you're gonna swim or go down into, but it's a cenote nonetheless. So you can say, hey, I saw a cenote in Cozumel. Next is Punta Langosta. This of the 3 is the only terminal that's located directly in downtown San Miguel. So it's perfect if you're wanting to explore the town, because you just get off the cruise ship and you walk right off and you're there in town. You are a short walk from all of the downtown shops, restaurants, and bars. There's also a Punta Langosta mall right by there. And I mentioned I just got home from Cozumel on a Virgin Voyages cruise, and we were docked at Punta Langosta. So there is kind of that downtown vibe, and there's even a movie theater if you're interested in watching a movie in a foreign country, and lots of other shopping opportunities. So it's a little further removed from the other 2 cruise terminals, which those 2 are located closer together. And then more toward the downtown area is that Punta Langosta terminal. And because of the location of Punta Langosta, it does put it a little bit further away from those big beach clubs that we're going to talk about. So a taxi ride is going to cost you a little bit more if you're docked at Punta Langosta versus the other 2 terminals. Usually it's about a $5 difference, so nothing major, but just be prepared for that. Now let's talk about those beach clubs, because this is the highlight of Cozumel. Cozumel is home to some fantastic beach clubs, and they have a culture of these all-inclusive beach clubs. And they are perfect for cruisers who want to spend a day on the beach or in a pool, basically a water day, without spending a lot of money. Now, some people really like to ball on a budget, and usually that's me, and they'll seek out public beaches at a cruise port. And public beaches are just that, they're public. So in these different destinations, no one can really own a beach. But I will tell you that Cozumel is kind of structured in a way where there's really not any public beach access. And if you find one, it's probably going to be really rocky and not pleasant at all. And frankly, the all-inclusive beach clubs here are so awesome, it's really worth the money to pay for it anyway, especially given the difference of experience that you're going to have. Because those all-inclusives provide you with truly an all-inclusive experience. You get all of the food, unlimited, you get all of the beverages, including alcohol, and you have access to private beach front. And they also provide you with access to loungers and chairs at no additional cost. So when it comes to those beach clubs, let me tell you the big ones in Cozumel. First is Paradise Beach. I love Paradise Beach. It's actually, of them all, probably my favorite because it offers a fun atmosphere, but also a laid-back vibe. So you kind of get the best of both worlds. You get beachfront access, they have a large pool, and they have inflatables in the water. Now those do cost extra. You have to buy a VIP pass if you want to make use of that with things like those big inflatable obstacles. They have stand-up paddleboards and kayaks. But if you don't want those things, just do the basic entry, not the VIP pass. Now this is all-inclusive, and usually with all-inclusive, the food is meh at best. And I used to be a little bit critical of Paradise Beach's food because it wasn't great. It wasn't bad, it just was okay. But they recently got a new chef in like the last year or so, and the food has significantly improved, like a significant difference, like a noticeable difference. And as I mentioned, I love that relaxed vibe. Now, another thing that's kind of a side note that I love about Paradise Beach is they have amazing massages. So they have like this little hut that's kind of semi-enclosed between the pool and the beach. And those massages just hit different, and they're surprisingly affordable, and probably one of the best massages I've ever had in my life was at Paradise Beach. Highly recommend. They also have bars, gift shops. They usually have someone there making custom name bracelets, doing henna tattoos, and that sort of thing. And if you are traveling with really small children, they do have these kind of small kiddie pools that they will bring out to you and fill it with water so your kid can kind of splash around, which is really, I think, a nice touch. Another thing I love about Paradise Beach is that it does provide personalized service. And what I mean by that is if you're in the pool and you want a drink, you can flag down a bartender and they'll bring it to you. They also have a swim up bar. Now, if you're just chilling in your lounger and you're hungry, you have a server who will bring you a menu and you can order whatever you want and they will deliver it to you. So it really does feel like a more luxurious experience and you really get a lot of bang for your buck. Next, let's talk about Mr. Sancho's. Mr. Sancho's is a lot like Paradise Beach, but it's kind of known for its party vibe. If you visit Mr. Sancho's, you're gonna be more in the midst of loud music, people drinking a little bit more, having fun, letting loose. And it does tend to be a little bit more expensive than the other beach clubs in the area, but not significantly so. Now, a cool thing about Mr. Sancho's is that it offers 3 pools. So not just one that you're gonna get at Paradise Beach, which is great, but there's only one there. But Mr. Sancho's has 3 different pools. And one is kind of more of like the party pool, but there are other more laid back ones as well. But this is really not a great spot for a very relaxing day if that's what you're seeking out. They also have a buffet. So when you want to eat, there's a buffet. And you have access to beach chairs, umbrellas, food, and then drinks. And then the servers will come and bring your drinks to you. Like Paradise Beach, you can pay extra to do additional activities. This includes things like horseback riding, they have jet skiing, they have inflatables as well. And this club is very popular with, again, kind of the party set, but also it's pretty family friendly too. But this is not really a kick back and relax kind of place. So if that's what you're seeking, I would actually recommend going with Paradise Beach, or another great option is Nachi Cocom. Nachi Cocom is a smaller and quieter beach club. It is older and it does feel a little dated, and when you're in their pool, and there is only one, it does feel like it needs a little maintenance, but it is usually one of the cheapest options in Cozumel. So this is smaller, it's quieter, they do limit the number of passes that they sell on a day, so it doesn't get overly crowded. And in fact, they limit admission to just 130 guests daily. So that's really nice. It is all inclusive, like the other options that we've already discussed, and they do have the wait staff that serves you food and drink throughout the day. Now, I find that the variety at Nachi isn't quite as extensive as that you find at the other beach club areas, but the food is pretty solidly good, what you would expect at an all-inclusive. Nothing that's gonna knock your socks off, but it keeps you well fed and it's all included. So if you're looking for a peaceful beach day, and by the way, they also have amazing beach massages, but you want to kind of stay away from the crowds. You just want a quiet pool with a quiet swim up bar, and you want to quietly chill by the beach. You don't want the inflatables, the people like really drinking and loud music. Nachi is a great choice. It's more low key, it's smaller, it's more limited in people. So this is kind of the go-to spot if you're trying to save money, because it is usually the cheapest, or a very relaxing day by the sea. The next one I want to mention is a little bit different. It's not necessarily an all-inclusive beach club, but it's more of a beach park, and that's Chankanaab. This is actually the place that I visited on my first visit to Cozumel, and I had a wonderful time. But it is a little distinct than the other traditional all-inclusive beach clubs at this cruise port destination. Chankanaab is more of an eco park than a traditional beach club. Now, if you go here, you're gonna have a range of adventure activities. You can do snorkeling, there are sea lion shows, there are dolphin encounters if you wanna swim with the dolphins. And they do have a cordoned off kind of beach area that is kind of sectioned off with netting, which is really nice if you're cruising with those kind of people that are a little scared of the ocean or don't want lots of, critters touching them. There are fish there, but you're not gonna have to worry about things like sharks usually. So it's not as relaxing as the beach clubs. It is kind of a different design, but it is a great spot for families who want to do a beach day, but also maybe an excursion, something like swimming with the dolphins or more high activity or adventure. Now, keep in mind that Chankanaab is different. It's not that all-inclusive food, vibe that you get at the beach clubs. They are technically billing themselves as all-inclusive, but that is really here offered in the form of a buffet lunch. So if you're expecting that all-inclusive traditional Cozumel experience, you've gone to the other beach clubs, that's what you know, you'll be a little disappointed here to see that all-inclusive means a buffet lunch that's offered during limited times. But if you're looking for that kind of adventurous experience or more of an excursion type of outing, Chankanaab is a great choice. And when it comes to the location of all of these beach locations, they're all located kind of in a row on the same road, and they're all pretty close to the cruise port. It's very easy to get a taxi to and from. You don't have to order anything. There's taxis always there waiting, and it's super, super easy. As I noted before though, just make sure you have cash because a lot of times the taxi drivers here do not take credit cards. And also, while it is all-inclusive, tips are not required. They are appreciated. So when you have a really great server at one of these all-inclusive places, they really appreciate it when you leave behind a little bit of a tip. Usually if I'm traveling with my kids, I'll leave behind maybe 20 bucks for the day. Another important thing to note about these beach clubs, they do not provide towels. So you want to bring them with you from the cruise ship. Now, some of them, like Mr. Sancho's, they will rent you a towel, but you have to pay a deposit. They're usually really thin, not high quality towels. So you definitely want to come prepared and bring your own towels. That's a common misconception because these are all-inclusive, and sometimes people think, well, that means towels are included too. They're not. Now, another alternative to the all-inclusive beach clubs are beach resort day passes. Now, the beach clubs, these are not hotels. These are beach clubs. They only open during the day. They're very much geared toward day visitors, maybe people that come over for the day from Cancun, but primarily it's intended and designed for cruise travelers. But there is another option in Cozumel as well that also gives you an all-inclusive experience, and that is the resort day passes. So these are those Cozumel hotels and resorts that have a lot of the same amenities as the all-inclusive beach clubs that offer day passes for sale for cruisers to come to their property, not to use a hotel room, but to use the amenities like the pools and the beachfront access. Now, this is a great option too. I've done all of the beach clubs many times. I have recently started to explore and do the resort day passes just to dabble in that and see what it's like. And I like both of them. So I'll tell you a little bit about one of the options I recently visited, and I'll tell you the pros and cons of it. So I've actually visited Cozumel twice in the last month. And on both of those visits, I did a resort day pass. I had a wonderful experience at one of them, but a not so great experience at another that I will tell you should probably avoid. So now that you know a little bit about these day resorts or these day passes, you buy them from a website like Resort for a Day. I'll drop my affiliate link below, and that gives you access to all of the amenities that these resorts have to offer. So keep in mind, the benefit is that at these resorts, mostly their clientele are people that are paying to stay at these resorts in the hotel, that are coming out and using the pool and the beach during the day. So the great thing is it's going to be more of a laid back vibe and not as crowded as that you're going to get at the all-inclusive beach clubs. Now, the benefit too is that they are all-inclusive generally, so you are going to still get your food and your drink and access to a lounger and an umbrella. They're all included, and that's nice. And that's one thing that makes them very similar to the all-inclusive beach clubs. Now, with the resorts, they are more expensive. The beach clubs are going to be significantly cheaper than the resort day passes. But the benefit of the resort day pass is, again, you're going to get a little bit more of a chill vibe. And sometimes those beach clubs sell out and you're left with no choice but to go to one of those resort passes. Now, I recently visited Playa Mia. That's a little bit more on the affordable side, and I would not recommend this one. The food was offered in buffet style. I didn't find it to be very good. The property felt very run down. They have two pools, one of which is very small. and the other is geared more towards kids. There is a couple of water slides and toddler play areas. And then there's, of course, beachfront access. Now, while I don't recommend Playa Mia, I will tell you there's one exception. If you're cruising with young kids, and by young kids, I mean toddlers, Playa Mia is a great choice because it's one of the only options, at least I've experienced, that has a dedicated area for toddlers. And that is that kind of water park area. So if you have a toddler, Playa Mia is a great choice. But if you don't have a toddler, I strongly recommend exploring literally any other option than Playa Mia. Didn't love it at all. Another option that I did really like that I recently visited, just got back from last week, is Iberostar. It is all-inclusive. It's a beautiful resort. They have a pool. They have beachfront access. I really enjoyed my day here. It was very relaxing. The property was well-maintained and beautiful. It wasn't packed to the gills with cruisers, and I love cruisers, obviously, but it was mostly resort guests, so it had a much more relaxing, chill vibe. And I love that they provide the beach towels. I didn't have to bring my beach towel from the ship, which is the case at pretty much every other beach club or resort in Cozumel. So that was a really nice perk as well. Now, all being said, apples to apples comparison, I really did like my resort day pass experience at Iberostar, not at Playa Mia. But if I had to pick, I probably am gonna pick a beach club. It's more affordable and mostly just because it's cheaper and they're kind of the same. So make sure you explore all the options. I'll give you all the links to all of the different beach clubs, at least that I've visited and can tell you about, and the resort day passes below. So check them out, look at pricing for your dates, and see what works best for you. Now let me tell you a few reasons why I love Cozumel. One are the pristine beaches. Cozumel is known for its beaches. Now I will give you a little heads up, regardless of where you go, this is a part of the world that is affected by sargassum, which is basically seaweed. So a large part of the year, there's a lot of seaweed. And many of these resorts will even come out and try to bulldoze the seaweed off of the beach, but it's kind of like trying to brush your teeth while you're eating Oreos. It's kind of an effort and futility, but it's still a great place to visit and do a beach day. Now, what's cool about all of the beach clubs that I talked about earlier is they all have pools. So if it is a day and the beach is just disgusting because there's so much seaweed, you can always just bop over to the pool and spend a day at the pool. So regardless of what you do, Cozumel has something for everyone, and it's really, really beautiful. Related to that, there's also world-class snorkeling. There are vibrant coral reefs. They have a rich marine ecosystem. So if snorkeling is your thing, make sure you bring your own snorkel set, because renting it is kind of gross because people put their mouths on that and it gets expensive. So I always bring my own snorkeling set when I visit, and it's really great because it's free and you just put your snorkel set on and you look under the water, and it's really, really fun. And of course, if you want to be more adventurous, you can book an excursion or rent a boat and go out further for more exciting snorkeling. Cozumel also has a really rich history and culture. There are Mayan ruins located here. There are some museums. There's a Cozumel museum that will teach you all about the area's culture and heritage if you're into that kind of thing. And there are also some free things to do. Now, as I mentioned, a free beach day, it's not going to happen here, just being honest with you. But the beach clubs are surprisingly affordable, especially for what you get. But if you are bound and determined to not spend any money or to minimize your spending, there are some things you can do. One is to just explore. As I mentioned, the downtown El Centro or San Miguel area has lots of shops and restaurants, and you can kind of get a taste of the town's vibrant culture. And while the public beaches are limited, and as I mentioned, not very pleasant, they do exist. But if you really want a free beach day, it can be had here, but it's going to be very, very rocky, and you're not going to have a lounger and stuff like that. There's also the Cozumel Museum. It's a great place to learn about the island's history and culture, and it offers free admission. And if you're docked at Punta Langosta, it's just a short walk away. A big question cruisers have about Cozumel is how to get around. Now, taxi culture is strong here. I've looked at trying to find a private driver because normally I love private drivers, and that's my preferred way to explore a cruise port. They don't really exist here, at least that I've been able to find. But if you have a recommendation, drop it down in the comments because I would love to find one. But taxis kind of rule the roost here. Taxis are private and affordable, and what I mean by private is when you get a taxi, it's just you and your group. You're not crammed in with other people like you are at other popular cruise port destinations in the Caribbean, like Grand Cayman and like St. Thomas and the Virgin Islands. So they are private. And they also have a lot of vans at the ready. So if you have a bigger family or you're traveling with other people, you can usually share a van and really save money. And they are readily available at each cruise terminal. So regardless of which of those 3 Cozumel terminals you're docked, you simply get off the ship, walk down the pier, walk through the duty-free shop, exit the terminal, and you'll see signs for taxi transportation. They're usually easy to find, they're well marked, prices are right there and visible, and all you need to do is look and see where you're going, and it will tell you exactly what it's going to cost. Taxi prices here are fixed and they're regulated by the government. I'm the queen of negotiating. I've tried to negotiate, didn't happen. But shoot your shot, give it a whirl, but know that taxi prices are pretty much gonna be what it says on the sign. And they are pretty affordable. If you are going to downtown San Miguel from one of the 2 ports where you can't walk to it, that's gonna cost you about $10 each way. If you're going to one of the beach clubs that we discussed, that can range anywhere from about $20 to $30 each way, depending on the location, which is actually a bargain if you've got a family of 3, 4, 5 people. Kind of stinks when you're a solo traveler. I just did a solo cruise and my taxi fare from Punta Langosta to Iberostar was 25 bucks each way. So 50 bucks, kind of steep. I didn't love it, but it is what it is. And it's a lot more affordable than a lot of other cruise port destinations. So that's what you can expect when it comes to taxis. And as I noted earlier, do not assume they take credit cards. Most of the taxis do not. Now you don't need to convert your currency to pesos. Almost all of them are going to take US currency, but it's always a good idea just to verify that before you get into the vehicle. And most of your drivers are going to be at least conversational in English. So Cozumel, it really is a cruiser's dream, and that's why it's one of my favorite ports. The waters are great, aside from the little seaweed issue that you sometimes have. The culture is rich, the locals are super friendly, it's very tourist friendly, and those all-inclusive beach clubs are really amazing. And regardless of what you do, there's something for everyone. So I hope this video is helpful in you planning your next stop to Cozumel. But of course, I love to hear your own advice and feedback and recommendations. What did I not cover? What do you love about Cozumel? Drop it below. I go all the time. I'm always interested in exploring new things, so tell me about it. What am I missing? If you found this information helpful, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And as always, visit my website at profmelissa.com for all kinds of free resources, including advice, my personal recommendations, and free port guides for most major cruise port destinations. Happy sailing!